Hello, Michael here. Looking today at Psalm 78 for our devotion, a psalm which may be subtitled, Tell the Coming Generation. And we're focusing on verse 11 through to 18 for our exposition. Let's go ahead and read those verses. Verse 11, And forgot his works and his wonders that he had showed them. 12. Marvellous things did he in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. 13. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as an heap. 14. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. And verse 15. He clave the rocks in the wilderness, and gave them drink as out of the great depths. Verse 16. He brought streams also out of the rock, and caused waters to run down like rivers. 17. And they sinned yet more against him, by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. And 18. And they tempted God in their heart, by axing meat for their lust. And as we turn to the treasure of David, let's go ahead and read verse 11 again. And forgot his works and his wonders, that he had showed them. And Spurgeon exposits. And forgot his works and his wonders that he had showed them. Had they remembered them, they would have been filled with gratitude and inspired with holy awe. But the memory of God's mercies to them was as soon effaced as if written upon water. Scarcely could one generation retain the sense of the divine presence in miraculous power. The succeeding race needed a renewal of the extraordinary manifestation, and even then was not satisfied without many displays thereof. Ere we condemn them, let us repent of our own wicked forgetfulness, and confess the many occasions upon which we also have been unmindful of past favors. And verse 12, Marvellous things did he in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the fields of Zoan. Egypt, here called the field of Zoan, was the scene of marvelous things, which were done in open day in the sight of Israel. These were extraordinary, upon a vast scale, astounding, indisputable, and such as ought to have rendered it impossible for an Israelite to be disloyal to Jehovah, Israel's God. Verse 13. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters to stand as a heap. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through. A double wonder, for when the waters were divided, the bottom of the sea would naturally be in a very unfit state for the passage of so vast a host as that of Israel. It would in fact have been impassable, had not the Lord made the road for his people. Who else ever had led a nation through a sea? Yet the Lord has done this full often for his saints in providential deliverances, making a highway for them where nothing short of an almighty arm could have done so. And he made the waters to stand as a heap. He forbade a drop to fall upon his chosen. They felt no spray from the crystal walls on either hand. Fire will descend and water stand upright at the bidding of the Lord of all. The nature of creatures is not their own intrinsically, but is retained or altered at the will of him who first created them. The Lord can cause those evils which threatens to overwhelm us to suspend their ordinary actions and become innocuous to us. And verse 13. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud. He did it all, he alone. He brought them into the wilderness, and he led them through it. It is not the Lord's manner to begin a work and then cease from it while it is incomplete. The cloud both led and shadowed the tribes. It was by day a vast sunscreen, rendering the fierce heat of the sun and the glare of the desert sand bearable, and all the night with a light of fire. So constant was the care of the great shepherd, that all night and every night the token of his presence was with his people. That cloud, which was a shade by day, was a sun by night. Even thus the grace which cools and calms our joys, soothes and solaces our sorrows. What a mercy to have a light of fire with us amid the lonely horrors of the wilderness of affliction. Our God has been all this to us, and shall we prove unfaithful to him? We have felt him to be both shade and light, according as our changing circumstances have required. He hath been our joy in woe, cheered our heart when it was low, and with warnings soft as sad, calmed our heart when it was glad. May this frequently renewed experience knit our hearts to him in firmest bond. Verse 15. He clave the rocks in the wilderness, and gave them drink as out of the great depths. He clave the rocks in the wilderness. Moses was the instrument, but the Lord did it all. Twice he made a flint a gushing rill. What can he not do? And gave them drink as out of the great depths, as though it gushed from earth's innermost reservoirs. The streams were so fresh, so copious, so constant, that they seemed to well up from the earth's primeval mountains, and to leap at once from the deep with couched beneath. Here was a divine supply for Israel's urgent need, and such a one as ought to have held them for an ever in unwavering fidelity to their wonder-working God. Verse 16. He brought streams also out of the rock, and caused waters to run down like rivers. The supply of water was as plenteous in quantity as it was miraculous in origin. Torrents, not driblets, came from the rocks. Streams followed the camp. The supply was not for an hour or a day. This was a marvel of goodness. If we contemplate the abounding of divine grace, we shall be lost in admiration. Mighty rivers of love have flowed for us in the wilderness. Alas, great God, our return has not been commensurate therewith, but far otherwise. In verse 17 it reads, And they sinned yet more against him, by proving the Most High in the wilderness. And they sinned yet more against him, outdoing their former sins, going into greater deeps of evil. The more they had, the more loudly they clamored for more, and murmured because they had not every luxury that pampered appetites could desire. It was bad enough to mistrust their God for necessaries, but to revolt against him in a greedy rage for superfluities was far worse. Ever is it the nature of the disease of sin to proceed from bad to worse. Men never weary of sinning, but rather increase their speed in the race of iniquity. In the case before us, the goodness of God was abused into a reason for greater sin. Had not the Lord been so good, they would not have been so bad. If he had wrought fewer miracles before, they would not have been so inexcusable in their unbelief, so wanton in their idolatry. By provoking the Most High in the wilderness, although they were in a position of obvious dependence upon God for everything, being in a desert where the soil could yield them no support, yet they were gracious enough to provoke their benefactor. At one time they provoked his jealousy by their hankering after false gods. Anan, They excited his wrath by their challenges of his power, their slander against his love, their rebellions against his will. He was all bounty of love, and they all superfluity of naughtiness. They were favored above all nations, and yet none were more ill-favored. For them the heavens dropped manna, and they returned murmurs. The rock gave them rivers, and they replied with floods of wickedness. Herein, as in a mirror, we see ourselves. Israel in the wilderness acted out, as in a drama, all the story of man's conduct towards his God. Verse 18. And they tempted God in their heart by asking meat for their lust. And they tempted God in their heart. He was not tempted, for he cannot be tempted by any. But they acted in a manner calculated to tempt him. And it always just to charge that upon men, which is the obvious tendency of their conduct. Christ cannot die again, and yet many crucify him afresh, because such would be the legitimate results of their behavior, if its effects were not prevented by other forces. The sinners in the wilderness would have had the Lord change his wise proceedings to humor their whims. Hence they are said to tempt him. By asking meat for their lust, would they have God become purveyor for their greediness? Was there nothing for it but that he must give them whatever their diseased appetites might crave? The sin began in their hearts, but it soon reached their tongues. What they at first silently wished for, they soon loudly demanded with menaces, insinuations, and upbraidings. Yeah, that's the section we read this morning. How it reminds us of ourselves. God's so good, and yet our minds run to dishonoring him. And then our lips speak, and dauntingly our actions fulfill this abomination against our God. Lord, have mercy. Strengthen us, God. Hold us on every hand to walk carefully before you, O Lord. With your strong hand, Lord, continue to guide us, even as we give you praise and bless your holy name forevermore. Trust you enjoyed the meditation. Michael here declaring yet again, Jesus is Lord. Until next time, be blessed.